One of the things that gets me quite angry is when, and there are hundreds, and I mean literally hundreds of people that I've worked with who have received this advice, is that if their dog is performing a behaviour which is either detrimental to itself, to them, or some third party, be they human or some other life form, that they basically should, rather than correcting that behaviour, as in directly addressing that behaviour, that they should instead try and reward the dog for an incompatible behaviour, okay? So something which doesn't lend itself to the same thing. So if I've got a dog that jumps, lunges up at people for attention, that I should teach the dog to sit instead, and that I should heavily reinforce the sit and reinforce, make it stronger by way of rewarding it more often. Or if I have a dog that likes to chase bicycles, that I teach the dog that chasing my tennis ball is more fun, so that I teach the dog, when you see a bicycle, look towards me, good dog, I throw a tennis ball, you chase the tennis ball instead. There's an absolute fundamental flaw with this. It's brilliant intention, it's really, it's good intention, and I can understand entirely why trainers, behaviourists, whatever one of them is, will advise that people follow these protocols, these training and incompatible behaviour protocols, because it basically doesn't involve anything negative. Do you know what I mean? It's pretty, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's basically harmless, it's benign. It's a benign training procedure. And the problem with it is, this is the major problem with it, is if let's take for example that I have a dog that chases, I have a border terrier and it chases skateboard wheels. Whenever it sees a skateboard, it chases the wheels of the skateboard. So I go and see a trainer, and the trainer advises me, okay then, what we're going to do is, rather than your dog thinking, oh, skateboard, I'll chase it, we're going to make your dog look at us when it sees a skateboard, and we'll reward your dog with a tennis ball, okay? Fine, understand the logic behind it, no problem at all. This is where the problem comes in, is that you go to a park and you decide that you're going to let your dog have a run, and there's nothing whatsoever, maybe a couple of dog walkers or whatever, and you let your dog off and your dog has a run. And it's 30-40 yards away from you, and then around the corner of the park comes 4 lads on skateboards, or a girl, if you want to be non-sexist, a girl and 3 lads come around the corner on skateboards. Now you're not there, you're 30-40 yards away, but here's your dog with the skateboard wheels trundling towards it. It can't look at you because you're not there. It can't have a tennis ball thrown for it because you're not there. So what is the default behaviour of that dog when it sees those skateboard wheels? And I'll tell you, absolutely for nothing, the default behaviour of the dog will be straight back to what the dog has always done when it sees skateboard wheels, without there being an owner present to throw a tennis ball for it, and that's to chase them. The problem that you then get with anybody who understands behaviour or has researched behaviour understands this, is that what you then get is a dog that sometimes can chase skateboard wheels and sometimes it can't chase skateboard wheels. What that actually does is make the chasing of skateboard wheels more rewarding than it is for a dog that can chase them all the time. Because it's something that I can only do every now and again, so it actually builds in intensity the desire to perform that behaviour. Now, I'm using skateboard wheels as an example. It could be absolutely anything. We could be talking about, obviously, typically chasing livestock, or we could be talking about jumping up on visitors, or we could be barking and lunging at the window when the postman comes, dogs that are going nuts in the back of the car when you're driving along, anything. It can be anything. But the peddled myth, which it is a myth, unfortunately, that teaching an incompatible behaviour with reward can actually stand up against that initial learnt response when the owner isn't present, or when the owner isn't able to deliver the reward, is just false. And the reason for this, the reason that it's false and won't work, is because you haven't actually done anything whatsoever to address the underlying emotional response that the dog has in respect of that trigger. So if I have a dog that sees skateboard wheels and it thinks fun, great, even if it's not cognitively processing it like that, and it's not making a conscious decision that skateboard wheels are fun because they just trigger an inbuilt behavioural chain within the dog to chase them, particularly in something like a terrier, then the thing is, they're positive. They have appetitive qualities. There's something the dog will seek out. They're releasing mechanisms. They allow the dog to perform a behaviour that it likes to perform. Now, the problem with that is that when you teach it something else, they still have that. You've done nothing whatsoever to address that. You haven't altered the perceived consequence or the perceived outcome, the expectation in the dog's mind towards that particular stimulus, that thing. And that is why when you go to trainers who will tell you to, don't worry about it for now, let's teach an incompatible behaviour and then we'll slot that in and we'll cue that behaviour, or we'll ask for that behaviour from the dog in the presence of the, the former, what you'd call an eliciting stimuli, so the thing that normally, the skateboard wheel, the thing that normally triggered the response. It won't work simply because you're basically trying to throw duvets on a response rather than terminate it. You're trying to put it into hibernation. You're trying to suppress it. But as soon as it finds an out, as soon as there's an opportunity, and when you're not there is when that opportunity will arise, as anybody who's got a dog that chases sheep when it's 50, 60 feet away from them, or when a sheep suddenly flings up from the gorse that you weren't expecting, or from behind a hedgerow that you weren't expecting, and you're a long way away and your whistle's in your pocket, you'll find that the dog will instinctively do what it has always done, because there has been no termination of what it expects to happen. And the key to problem behaviour, and this is quite important that I say, a problem behaviour is a behaviour that basically affects the welfare or the future welfare of the animal, of some third party, or of the owner. That is something that I would consider to be problematic, because it is liable to be detrimental to welfare, and that's what training's got to be about, modification has to be about. But when you come up against that, you have to be able to tackle the situation head on, as well as putting in alternatives, as well as teaching the dog what you want it to do instead. You know, you can't simply teach one half of the equation, or else it'll work perfectly well when your trainer's standing alongside you, and when you're there with your rewards ready and you've got your cues ready, but it will fall flat on its face the moment your dog gets the opportunity to be in a context other than that in which you've trained. And it's a sad reality, but it is absolutely true. So please do not buy in to the myth that if you teach your dog something else instead, that it will stop doing the thing that it was doing before. And you can ask any person that turns their back, and has been doing for the last 4 years, for a dog that jumps up at them when they come home, or a dog that jumps up at visitors and asks them to stand still and ignore the dog, please. How many times do you hear people saying that, and how long have they been saying it for? So it's just a bit of information for you. Be really, really interested on any points that you've got. I'm happy to discuss anything whatsoever, positive or criticism. I welcome criticisms, because I think people grow through discussion, and through, particularly when you bring forward opposition to a particular statement. So if you oppose what I'm saying, that's absolutely fine, and I'll welcome it. No hard feelings, we'll discuss it and see where we go. But hopefully it will make you think a little bit. Okay, all the best. Thank you.